Hello students, welcome. Previously, lesson 15, form 4, topic 4, you are dealing with the second factor affecting the preferential discharge of ions during electrolysis, which was the concentration of the ions in the electrolyte. So today, lesson 16, we want to proceed to the third factor affecting the preferential discharge of ions during electrolysis, and that is the nature of the electrode used. Remember, we said we have two types of electrodes. One was inert electrodes and the other ones were active electrodes. So we start with the inert electrodes, and we are saying these are electrodes that do not react with the product formed at the electrodes. That means they are unreactive. Examples of inert electrodes include graphite or carbon, platinum, and also titanium. Then we are having active electrodes. What are active electrodes? We are saying these are electrodes that react with the product formed at the electrodes. Examples of active electrodes include copper, mercury, and also silver. So we are saying when we are talking about the nature of the electrode used, we are told only the product at the anode is affected by nature of the electrode. That means at the cathode, we will still use the position of the cations and also anions in the electrochemical series. So let's go to examples. So we are going to go to examples, and we are going to do example A, that's electrolysis of dilute copper 2 sulfate using copper electrodes. Remember, copper electrodes were examples of active electrodes. So we are going to say copper 2 sulfate solution contains copper 2 ions and also sulfate ions from copper 2 sulfate, hydrogen ions, and also hydroxyl ions from water. So when an electric current is passed through the solution, we are told sulfate ions and also hydroxyl ions, being negatively charged and ions, migrate towards the anode. What is anode? We said anode is the electrode which is connected to the positive terminal of the battery. But we are told none of the ions, that means the sulfate ions and the hydroxyl ions, is preferentially discharged at the anode. Instead, the copper electrode loses electrons and goes into solution as copper 2 ions. So we are going to go reaction at the anode. So we are having copper electrode, which is solid, or copper solid, losing 2 electrons to form copper 2 ions. So next we are saying copper 2 ions and hydrogen ions, being positively charged cations, migrates towards the cathode. What is cathode? We said cathode is the electrode which is connected to the negative terminal of the battery. So next we are saying copper 2 ions are preferentially discharged as they have high tendency to gain electrons compared to hydrogen ions. Or we can say copper 2 ions are below hydrogen in the electrochemical series. That's the reason why copper 2 ions are preferentially discharged over hydrogen ions. So next we are going to go and see reaction at the cathode. So we are going to have copper 2 ions aqueous solution gaining the 2 electron loss from the anode by the copper electrode to give us neutral copper solid. So next we are going to go and see observation made at the anode and at the cathode. So at the anode, the copper anode decreases in mass. Remember, we said at the anode, the copper electrode is the one that loses electrons to form copper 2 ions and goes into solution. So that means the mass of the copper anode decreases. Next, we go to the cathode. At the cathode, we are going to have, or we are going to see red-brown solid is deposited. That means the copper cathode increases in mass because we are going to have red-brown copper which is deposited on that copper cathode. So next we are going to go and see the observation that we are going to get in the electrolyte, and we are saying the blue color of the electrolyte remains blue. This is because the copper 2 ions discharged at the cathode are replaced by those formed at the anode. Remember, we are having the cathode, copper 2 ions are discharged at the cathode to form neutral copper solid. So the copper 2 ions, which was giving the copper 2 sulfate the blue color, are discharged at the cathode, but they are replaced at the anode. So here we are having the electrolytic cell. Remember, our electrolyte is copper 2 sulfate solution. And here we're having the copper cathode and also the copper anode. Remember we said the copper anode is the one that loses electrons and it is going to go to solution as copper 2 ions. So at the cathode, we're having copper 2 ions gaining the 2 electron loss from the anode to form neutral copper solid, which will be deposited on the copper cathode here. So we are going to have red brown solid there being deposited. Lastly, we are going to go to see the points to note. Roman 1, we are saying the pH of the solution remains the same as both hydrogen ions and hydroxyl ions are not discharged and remain in solution. So the second point to note, we are saying no gases are formed at both electrodes. Remember, at the anode, the copper 2 ions were losing electrons. So that means we have not preferentially discharged hydroxyl ions at the anode so that we could have formed oxygen gas. Then at the cathode, we have preferentially discharged the copper 2 ions so that they gain 2 electrons to form neutral copper solid, which is deposited as a red-brown coating on the copper cathode. Remember, we have not discharged hydrogen ions so that it gains 2 electrons to form hydrogen gas. So we're saying here, no gases are formed at both electrodes. Learners, that's the end of our class today. Thank you for watching.